again, welcome back to my channel, and today I'll be reviewing these Copic markers that I got recently. So I had an old gift card that I got for Christmas last year for a local craft store, and usually they do not sell alcohol markers whatsoever. So when I saw these Copic markers, I was relatively surprised. I was like, I'm gonna try these out. I have money on my gift card, so it shouldn't be too bad. And luckily I did have enough money on my gift card to buy it, but boy did it cost a pretty penny. I don't think I would have been able to afford it without it. So here is me just showing off the different markers. It came with a blue, it came with a yellow, and it came with an orange, and it came with a red. And it came with two fine liners, one in a color of blue and one in a color of black. So I'm just showing like the different numbers for the Copics. These are Copic Ciaos, by the way. I couldn't afford Copic sketch even with the gift card, so I wasn't able to do it. And this is a sketch that I kind of came up with on the fly because I really wanted to test out these markers and make a video out of it. So this is just me doing the line art for the sketch. I wanted to do something more mermaid, more like underwater themed. So I kind of came up with this little like mermaid portrait with a bunch of fish like swimming around her. And I do have to say I'm slightly disappointed in the fine liners. People have always talked about how good Copic fine liners and Copic markers are, but I feel like the fine liners for this set aren't as good as I thought they would be. Maybe I had too much of a high expectation, but for me, what I was using the marker, and it could have been my fault too because I was drawing at a weird angle because I don't have a desk at my like home. So I had to use my bed and try to set up like a little drawing part there, and it was kind of like hard to do. So honestly, it could have just been on me for like drawing kind of weirdly, but I felt like the tips were not as strong as some of the other tips I've seen. They're very easily bendable, and I keep having to adjust myself and go over lines in order to get the line to be as thick and dark as I want it to. And I feel like I don't have that issue with regular fine liners that I have for normal drawing. So because I have a pack that I got from 5 and Below, and typically they're pretty good, surprisingly, for only like $5. But for this one, I had a lot of issues with the black, especially because it just would not go down as thick as I wanted to. I keep having to redo my lines, and it became a bit of a hassle. When I switched over to the blue one, however, it was slightly better than the black one. So I don't know if it was like me using them wrong and finally figuring out how to use them correctly, or just like a manufacturing issue. But for me, I just felt like these fine liners were not as hyped up as a lot of people had them to be. So it kind of made me like slow down when it comes to my line art process. And like I said before, I'm trying to find like a new groove when it comes to line art, because I did stop doing line art for a long time because I didn't really like how my line art was turning out. But then I switched over to do line art again because I like found a good bit of tutorials and tips on how to make your line art better, including line variation, which is a big help. Like if you are not satisfied with your line art, try doing line variation because it makes a big difference when you do like line art. And then for the coloring process, I decided to make it a 5 marker challenge. Like I only wanted to use the markers that were in the pack and in the pack alone. So I didn't use any of my other markers from before. And like unlike the fine liners, I really had a good time with the Copic markers. They're just so nice and fine. And even with the Ciao, which I know is slightly less expensive than the Copic sketch, I really just had a great time using these markers. They're very much flexible and easily blendable, and I just had a great time using it. So there was no problems with the markers, which I assumed so because I have a small collection, very small, humble collection of Copic markers. These markers are so expensive, so I barely have a collection of that much. A few markers that I use pretty often, and I always love using them. They're just such a great tool to have when you're doing traditional art. So I knew like even with the Ciao, because I have both Ciao and sketch markers, just a small collection, mostly Ciao because they're cheaper, and they're typically a really great alternative if you don't want to spend the extra like $3 on the sketch markers. And these markers were no exception. They were very well done. They're very easily blendable, and had a good time putting them down. There was no streak marks. It was just overall a good vibe. I do have to say there's a little bit of streaking in the hair, and that's on me because I'm still trying to learn how to use them, and I haven't used them in months. Besides that one sketch I did with Sailor Saturn. But for the most part, and the Spikes family, but for the most part, these markers were really, even with my lack of experience, they looked really nice on paper. And honestly, I don't even think the camera does it justice because I really liked how they turned out in person compared to on the camera. So for my thought process for this drawing, like I said, I wanted to make it a 5 marker challenge because I just wanted to use the markers from the pack. So I decided to use a lot of orange and a lot of reds for her hair and for her scales, and then I used the orange to be a bit of like shading for the skin, and then I used the yellow to do her clothes, her like her ears and stuff like that. And then later you'll see that I used the blues and the greens to like do like the background fish stuff because I felt like it would be a nice change of pace and a nice pop of color. And since this is a 5 marker challenge, I didn't want to cheat and just use some colors and not all, so I decided to just use the green and the blues for the fish because I felt like it looked less off-putting if I instead of using it for the mermaid. But yeah, overall I had like a really good time using these markers. The only issue I had with the pack was the fine liners. They were acting very weird, but it could have been just like how I was drawing because I was literally drawing from the side instead of like drawing like with the drawing right in front of me. So it could have been that reason why it was acting weird, because maybe I was putting a little too much pressure, or maybe I just wasn't using it as well as I should be. I'm not sure if I'm going to do any more like traditional sketching videos as much as I want to, because they just take up a lot of space and a lot of like storage on my phone and on like my Google Drive, so I'm not really sure if I should continue doing it. But I really do like the whole trying out traditional like items and trying out traditional drawing stuff, and I really wish I could have more time and use more like traditional art supplies. But overall, I had a good time drawing the mermaid. I really like how she turned out, honestly. I really liked how I used the colors, and as you can see here, I'm just putting the final touches, and this is it for my video. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and see you guys next week, hopefully. Bye-bye.